When I first lost everything, I tried to hide it. I didn't want to be open or honest with anybody. I felt ashamed about it. I went to drink and drugs, and all I wanted to do throughout my childhood was play rugby. I'd had an injury that pretty much finished my career just as it was starting. When you're on commission only doing door-to-door sales, you've got to make it work, otherwise you don't earn any money. I just said, look, this isn't for me, and he just said, look, if you've not got the balls to do it, then you don't have to. And I'm like, hold on, I've got balls, I'll show you. And we delivered 1 million sales each year. I'm gonna bring power to Africa. We've got a huge solar project that's gonna be happening in Oman, probably around $250 million. They sent us the money, we forwarded that across for the PP, and it was proceeds of crime.
Ben, thank you very much for coming on to the pod. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. You're an entrepreneur, you've been here for a while in Dubai now, and your story is a really interesting one with lots of ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, really important for people to hear about, because it's a lot of people turn successful overnight, and people only see that, the car, the perfect home, whatever it is, but they don't really see the challenges, the failures, and so on. Mm-hmm. And maybe one of the first questions I want to ask you is, how many times did you really hit zero?
There's been 3.
So 3 times in your life you've hit zero.
Yeah.
What drove you to entrepreneurship? Like, where's that drive coming from?
Well, to be honest with you, I think right at the beginning, it was actually being able to see other people be successful. And I kind of always wanted it. And I think, just looking what other people were actually doing within different spaces and stuff like that, I never intended to go out and be an entrepreneur at the beginning. It was actually the first kind of job, if you will, that was a commission-only job. And I think that sort of forced out the entrepreneur spirit within me.
And during your childhood, were your parents entrepreneurs? I don't know. Did they push you towards make your own money and be your own boss?
No, my mum and dad got divorced when I was quite young. My father wasn't in my life too much when I was 5. And yeah, it was quite a bit of a challenge, grew up in adversity. And one thing that my mum did always say was she pushed me to be the best person of me that I could possibly be. Even though things were challenging for her personally, I never really felt those challenges myself. You realise how difficult it must have been for her growing up. But yeah, no real entrepreneurship, all pretty solid jobs that each of the family members had.
Were you involved in sports much when you were a kid?
Quite a lot of sports. That was actually my first career, or one of the first things that I actually got paid for that could be considered a job, which was rugby. So I started when I was 6 years old, and then my career ended when I was 18. I signed a contract to go play over in Australia when I was 17, but my mother made me finish my A-levels and apply to university before I did that. And then I went over there, played rugby for the year, absolutely loved it, came back, signed a contract, and about 6 months into my contract, I had an injury that pretty much finished my career just as it was starting. All I wanted to do throughout my childhood was play rugby. I finally got there. I thought, right, we're away. And yeah, to have something that you were so passionate about taken away from you and not really having to deal with anything like that, it was challenging. And the other problem that I had, which, it might sound okay or a bit of a silver lining, was because I'd signed a contract, they had to pay me out of the contract and I had some insurance money. But then all of a sudden you've got this young kid that's got quite an addictive, overly zealous personality. And yeah, I went to drink and drugs and went down a bit of a deep hole for a good few months.
What did you do to get out of that rut? And I guess, were you depressed at that time?
Yeah, I was really bad. I got to a stage where I was actually paying my friends not to go to work so they could stay at home and get fucked up with me. But it was actually my mother. She could obviously see what was going on, and she just sat me down and just said, look, I'm not going to see you throw your life away. You did well at school. Why don't you go to university? Because she made me apply for the university or universities before I went to Australia. And I think because I had already been earning money, that wasn't a path that I wanted to go down. I wanted to continue to earn money. So spent a bit of time in rehab, came out, and that was when I started looking for a job. So I was applying for lots of just anything at all, to try and do something, simple things like a call center or something like that. And I remember going to interviews and the response was, you sound good, but you need more experience. And I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to get more experience if nobody's willing to give it to me? And then, just came across this little advert in the newspaper where it was looking for, it was direct marketing. I thought, oh, I'll give them a call. Went in there, did the first interview, beautiful office in the city centre. And they phoned me back and just said, your type of person we're looking for, would like to invite you back for an observation day. So went back for the observation day. I saw all these people in suits sat in a room and, everybody was like clapping and high-fiving. I'm like thinking, oh, this is ace. and anyway, I'm there sat in reception and they came out and got me and they just said, oh, come on, you're off on your observation day now. And we jumped in a car and ended up in a council estate in York and it was doing door-to-door sales. And I'm like, shit, this isn't me.
What were you guys selling?
Residential energy, so energy switching, so like gas and electric.
Okay.
And anyway, I thought, you know what, I'll go through the whole day. I really liked the gentleman who had the company. And I came back and he did what they call the final interview. And I just said, look, this isn't for me. And he just said, look, if you've not got the balls to do it, then you don't have to. And I'm like, hold on, I've got balls, I'll show you. And I ended up taking that position. And honestly, looking back, it was possibly one of the best things that I ever did. There were so many things that you learn about tenacity, about work ethic and all these things around that, because when you're on commission only doing door-to-door sales, you've got to make it work, otherwise you don't earn any money. Quite fortunately, the telecoms industry became deregulated then. Prior to that, it was just British Telecom that had monopoly of the telecoms industry. When it came deregulated, there was a new company came about called TalkTalk, and they got in touch with the organisation that I was a part of, and they just said, look, we want to try doing door-to-door sales. They were only a really small company then. They had 100,000 customers they'd just acquired. And what they did was they took them on board, and it was really interesting that one of the first adverts that they ran for TalkTalk was actually showing direct sales on above-the-line marketing. So the adverts were people there was a bus going into a housing estate, some people getting off the bus, going up to somebody and signing them up for TalkTalk. So, initially we got off to a really good start with that campaign. After a few months, I got a call from a wonderful chap called Nick, who again was a great mentor of mine. And he just said, look, you're fantastic working with us. How about you come work for us? And I was a little bit perturbed as to why they just didn't want to continue with the organisation that I was part of. And I learned that they were dropping them because there was a conflict of interest between them and Sky. And so it was literally to build the field sales channel from scratch. So yeah.
You're coming from an organisation where you had support.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people there that are doing something similar. You can ask them, hey man, well, how am I doing, etc., and maybe get some sort of support and support system. But now you're coming to do this, on your own, kind of?
Yeah, it was kind of on my own. But what I did was I managed to find another organisation that had a similar sort of structure to the one that I was previously a part of. They weren't anywhere near the same sort of scale or size as the one that I was a part of. And managed to come to some terms with them so I said that I will go and we'll set up an office first, which was in London. I'll go and initially show them how to do the sales, and then I'll show them how to build a team, and then I'll show them how to recruit, and basically just do what I'd done for the previous year.
How young were you?
And then I was 20.
You were 20 and you were teaching people how to do sales and recruit other salespeople.
Yeah, it was a bit of a funny one because, looking back, it was absolutely bonkers that I guess I didn't really know what I was doing. Even though I worked for what became a huge organization, it allowed me to be an entrepreneur within a huge commercial business. Again, mentioning Nick, who really was fantastic with me. He sort of shielded me from a lot of the commercial politics within the business and just allowed me to do what I needed to do. But I created this workload for myself. And I think the other thing is coming from a business or an organization where it was commission only and more of an entrepreneurial spirit, taking that and the work ethic within that into the commercial business, it just worked favors, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I had a fantastic time doing it, but I created this workload where for me it was normal to start, because eventually I built the events team as well as the field sales team. So the events guys were the ones who were going to the supermarkets. The residential guys were the ones who knocked the doors in the residential estates. And yes, I was starting at 7 o'clock in the morning and finishing at 10 o'clock at night, but I didn't know any different. It wasn't like, abnormal to me to do that. It was just like, right, this is it. This is what I need to do. And yeah, I did it.
The position you had was a salaried position or a capped commission position?
No, that one was a salaried position. Yeah, if anything, that was the first lesson I had within negotiation. I did shit with that.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
You're 20.
Yeah, basically he just said, look, Ben, you're fantastic with working with us. How about you come work for us? What would you want as a salary? And I threw a number out there. He said, okay. And then I said, okay, I want commission. And he said, yeah. I want money per sale. He said, yes. Then I said, I want car allowance. And he said, yes. And I went, I couldn't think of anything else. So I said, I want an IWC watch and a Mont Blanc pen. And yeah, he just kept saying yes to everything. So that was a big lesson. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was fantastic money.
Can I ask how much you were making?
For the age. Yeah, I started off, it was £75,000, which ultimately was double the amount what I was earning playing rugby anyway. And then there was bonus on top of that.
Bonus on top of that, based on revenue, I guess, generated?
Correct.
Fantastic. So this is your first experience of being an entrepreneur, somebody inside a business, and entrepreneur, you're building out stuff.
Yeah.
And you said there was somebody in the business, Nick, that shielded you from... What did he shield you from? What was it?
At the time, I was very boisterous. I mean, even today, I think I'd struggle within a commercial setting. I'd be a HR company's nightmare, I think. I don't like to follow the rules. I like to do things how I like to do them. So yeah, I guess the fortunate thing was, because a lot of it was based outside of the office, I was only there a short period of time. And don't get me wrong, they were a fantastic team of individuals, but yeah, sitting behind a desk from 9 till 5 just wasn't me.
How many people were working in your teams at that point? Like, were you 21, 22?
The challenges thing was the first office. Trying to get that to what was initially 10, then 15, then 20 people, that took a couple of months.
Normal people would say a couple of years, but it was difficult. It took a couple of months.
Yeah. It was very high turnover, especially when you're building organizations around commission only. It's very sink or swim. People either pick it up and they have the ability to be able to do it, or they don't. I mean, there's a lot of skill sets that you can teach, but ultimately, if you've got a decent attitude and a good work ethic, you could actually do quite well at it, especially because the product was so good. And then fast forward a couple of years, the residential team was around 150 people, and the events team was probably around a lot less than that, probably around 80. But then TalkTalk, they revolutionized the telecoms industry by launching free internet with a telecoms package. And then it was just a free-for-all. I had to set up call centers over in South Africa. That was interesting. We couldn't get enough bums on seats. The call center grew from 50 people to 400 people within 3 months. We were sending buses out to pick people up in the morning to bring them in. And yeah, it was a really good time. 2005, 2006, we delivered 1 million sales each year and became the #1 internet service provider in the UK.
That's incredible. How do you find people and how do you retain people? You were quite young when you started recruiting people for your field office and the events team. And obviously you just said that, tenacity and attitude. Okay. But you must have seen a lot of really good champions of really, really, really good guys. Was there any common theme within these like super achievers or these guys that really produced more or just were better at the job than the average Joe?
Yeah, it was funny. So my first ever mentor was a chap called Ryan. One of my very dear friends now. We've actually got a business together now. And he just said, look, don't prejudge anybody because you don't know how they're going to be in certain scenarios. So, the things that we were able to control were what people said to people on the door. So all these things are really simple. You could teach somebody a pitch. But like I mentioned, the other side of thing was I initially wanted to try and make everybody like me. So a little bit overhyper, a little bit boisterous, a bit rough around the edges. And, that didn't work. And he just said, look, Ben, if you can get people to want to be like you, but not try and make them like you, that's where you will excel. And, that's true. And then I started really appreciating people for their own individual backgrounds or their own individual strengths. I didn't want them to have the same characteristics as me. I looked for other characteristics outside of that. If somebody was like me, great, we got along like house on fire. But yeah, trying to find different assets that were complementary to mine.
Is there any specific character traits that you would say, or potential backgrounds that made other people achieve more? Because obviously if you have a high turnover, only the best, the performance stay. What's a common theme of performance?
Yeah, I think there were the two main things, or the two things that stood out was typically if you had somebody from a sporting background or a forces background, they tended to do really well. And then the other thing that really helped was somebody that had a bit of an extrovert in personality.
Do you consider yourself an extrovert?
I'd say I'm an introverted person naturally, but I've got an extroverted character. I'm actually on the spectrum. I've got Asperger's, and growing up, I'm super comfortable. If you just leave me alone in a book, I'm super content by myself. And then, with sport, one of the things that really happened to me, I was sort of really pushed into it from a young age. My father wanted to follow in his steps in rugby, and that sort of made me develop a alter ego. I later learned it's called masking. So I developed this persona that, was a little bit overly extroverted. It was kind of a character that I thought I was really happy playing, and I was good at it. And later in life, you realize that, just being a lot more authentic with yourself. And, that was when I started being more me.
It's really hard being authentic when you are pulled in different directions to have a certain role.
Mm-hmm.
Your mom can pull you in a certain way. Your girlfriend, your friends, your co-workers, they make you put on these masks for you to fit in with them.
Yeah.
How did you understand that, this is masking and I have to be more authentic or more true with myself? What that journey look like?
When you do experience failure, it really teaches you to have a look into yourself. And yeah, it was throughout a couple of these scenarios where, you actually have to come to terms with who you are as a person. But then also it forces you to be humble. And sometimes, trying to be humble, but a little bit cocksure of yourself, it doesn't really go hand in hand.
No, it doesn't.
And, when you are experiencing issues and, whether it's personal or within business, coming to terms with the fact that it's okay to ask for help. And it was at that point that I realized that I don't always need to be this overly confident guy where everything works and this, that, and the other. When I first lost everything, I don't think anybody would have really known because I tried to hide it. I didn't want to be open or honest with anybody. I felt ashamed about it. And yeah, it was a bit of a tough time.
I can imagine, fucking horrible, yeah. Well, what happened?
I was at TalkTalk then for 8 years. It was really tough because they'd just acquired an organization called AOL. And
AOL? Like the AOL?
Yeah.
Like AOL.com?
Yeah.
They acquired them?
Yeah, because they were, their UK, it was the
business.
UK business. To switch their customers onto TalkTalk, and they called myself and two others into a room and just said, look, your 3 positions going to become 1. There's your redundancy package. We're going to decide in 30 days. And, at that point, I'm like, shit, I've just put 8 years hard work into a company, grown pretty much all of their sales channels, to then be treated as a number, mate. I was mortified. But there was a couple of companies that had previously tried headhunting me to go work for them, but I couldn't because of a non-compete clause that I had in my contract. Anyway, during that 30 days, I got contacted a couple of companies. One of them was actually an organization over here, and got offered the position again at TalkTalk, which I knew they were going to offer it to me, but like I said, just knowing that I'd been treated as a number really hurt. So I accepted that position. I made one of the stupidest mistakes that I'd ever made, because I then handed my notice in 3 months later and didn't get the redundancy package. There was actually a company, one of the organizations that we grew in South Africa, at the Christmas party just said, Ben, I've heard you wanting to leave TalkTalk. I don't want you to work for another company. I want you to come work for me. Made me an unbelievable offer. And I was going to accept that until it got to around the March time. I ended up falling in love, and I decided that South Africa wasn't the place that I wanted to be. And I ended up setting up my own business. And initially it was strange because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I was good at working with organizations in terms of sales, but I needed a quick win, something that was going to generate a bit of revenue. And understanding that a lot of the call centers that I'd previously worked with, they required data. So I managed to get on board a contact center over in Manila. And it was the first thing that we did was just procuring data. So back then there was no GDPR or anything. It was literally a free for all. You could just contact as many people. And we just did surveys. So quite simply asking them the name, address, date of birth, who they use for their telecoms, who they use for the gas and electric. And we had these 4 questions. And I then sold that. There was a common problem that I came across, and I just thought it's a simple solution, and that was data. So there was a couple of call centers that I come across, and they contacted me because I had to procure a load of data as part of my role, or my team did. So naturally, I got contacted saying, look, can you get hold of data?
Interesting. So you open this first business, you start gathering data, and you start selling it to other businesses. How did that business evolve? Did you start recruiting people?
No, to be honest with you, I didn't need to. However, when I was a few months in, there was a gentleman that worked with me at TalkTalk, and he phoned me up. He was a very good friend of mine. I've known him for 7 years, and he just said, Ben, I've just split up with my wife. She's kicked me out. I'm a bit on my ass. Is there anything you can do to help? And I just said, Chris, I've got this company set up, because he looked after the call center side of things. And I just said, why don't I'll get you a place, pay for his rent for a couple of months near where I was living at the time. And we went down a path and did it together. And you know what? He was fantastic towards the business. It was sort of, his bread and butter. And gave him half of the business. And
so you just gave him, so you paid for his stuff. He got in.
Yep.
You already had a successful business that was making money. Can I ask you, what was the money look like? What kind of revenue were you turning over?
So within a couple of months, we've probably done around £100,000.
What was your overhead or OPEX costs?
It was next to nothing, because we were outsourcing the telesales to an organization in Manila.
So there's a company in Manila calling people up. You were giving them phone numbers to call?
No, because there was no GDPR back then. It was literally, they just had...
Oh, so you were just buying
phone book.
So I just went for the whole phone book.
Yeah.
So you just said, all right, guys, I have a great idea. This is the phone book. I need 4 questions answered. And you were reselling that information.
Exactly. Yeah.
How many companies were you reselling this to at the same time?
What I didn't want to do was oversell it, because that's where you lose the value. So I just sold it to one. But the figures where it cost, when I broke it down, it cost me around 10 pence per 4 bits of data that I had, and I sold them for £1 each. So, it was...
Oh, yes, sir. That's a high margin business.
It was really nice.
Well, 90% margin is a really good business. What was that business that you sold to? Was it TalkTalk or was it a competitor?
No, it was actually the telesales organization that worked for TalkTalk.
They were, I guess, based on performance and booked meetings or something. So for them, that's their KPI. They need better data to achieve better KPI for them.
Yeah, exactly.
So you knew this industry and you cornered that. It's well done, mate. That's a really good business.
Yeah. Funnily enough, one of the questions was, and I hate to say it because anybody that's lived in the UK understands, it was accidents and claims. So one of the questions that we had in there was just out of curiosity, have you had an accident within the last 12 months? And then, if they did, but there was a company that we sold that data to as well.
Okay, well, if it makes money and it's only a question, why not?
Exactly. It was going quite well. We'd been at it almost a year. I went on holiday to the Philippines, and we're there for a few weeks. And when I came back, I couldn't get in touch with him. Looked at the company accounts, and everything had gone. I had calls from the contact center over in Manila saying you need to pay us. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That was soul destroying.
Jesus, I'm so sorry to hear that, because you were building that business for a year. You still have suppliers to pay. And this guy that you gave an apartment to, half of your business, just went over and took all the money. But the business was doing well.
It was. I know.
And he was getting paid from the business, right?
Exactly. Mate, all these questions I've been over a million times. Why? I just remember thinking what we mentioned before, just like, why would somebody do that? And, you just keep playing the scenario over again and what you could have done differently and this, that, and the other. And, at that point, I thought I would like to try and find him to have a conversation with him and ask him the question. And, I couldn't get in touch with him. I even contacted his mother. She said, he'd moved somewhere over in Norwich direction with a girl. And I found this wonderful little business. I think it was called People Finder in the UK. I don't know whether it's still around. And for £99, you could give them as much detail as you could, and they'd come back. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, they came back with his name, his current address, most recent telephone number. They found 2 email addresses. And I tried calling him, and he hung up straight away, blocked me.
Jesus.
And then I sent him an email, and basically it was just saying, look, Chris, I don't know why you've done what you've done. I'm in and out of London most weeks. We can either meet there or I'll come to this address and we can have a conversation. And naturally I didn't hear anything back until a couple of weeks later, my mum phoned me. I was just at home. It was on a Saturday, and she just said, Ben, what are you doing? I said, I'm not doing anything. She went, oh, can you come round? The police are here. I'm like, okay. So I went round there and they asked me a few questions and he'd put a restraining order on me.
Motherfucker.
At that point, I was fuming, and
Jesus Christ.
up until that point, I'd not mentioned it to anybody, and my mum had heard me explain to the police what had gone on. And yes, she could see that I was fuming. And my mum just sat me down and she just said, look, Ben, revenge is a dish best served cold. What next?
Why did you not sue him?
To be honest with you, if it wasn't for the fact that my mum said, what are you going to do next? What's next for Ben Gilbert? I'd have probably pursued that path. But, I'd have needed some money to do that, and I didn't have that. That was when I thought, right, I am going to try and find some companies that might need assistance in sales, and just do some training with them. And I started looking at companies that were offering sales director roles or sales roles. And a bit of a funny story. I found this. It was a solar company in the UK that were looking for a sales director, and it was direct, and at the bottom it just said no agencies or anything like that. And one of my friends, he had a recruitment business. I phoned them up. I told him obviously what I was going to do, and I contacted this company and I just said, look, I know you're not looking for an agency or a recruitment company to be able to procure this role for you, but we've just had a look at the job description and we have the perfect candidate. You don't have to pay us a penny. We'll send him across to you. Just sit down, have a conversation with him. I'm sure you'll love him. And I sent myself.
So you presented yourself as the recruitment agency.
Exactly.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But what that allowed me to do, when they came around to it, because they were a bit against it at first, but then I just said, okay, what is it that you're looking for? What's the company been up to over the last sort of few years? What is it that you're wanting to achieve moving forward? So I already had a lot of the KPIs that they were wanting to achieve. So I already knew how to pitch it when I was going in there. It wasn't for a job. I knew that I wanted to try and get a retainer for working alongside their organization with their sales team, and then finding somebody to run that team.
And the entrepreneur within you never stops.
Yeah.
Just fucking never stops. Because a lot of people, when, business, this fails and you get, this massive treason of, the human being that you helped give business to. This is business. When you want, people are like, oh, man, business is not for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they would probably just go to a normal job. You didn't. You wanted to go and get a retainer.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that resilience to?
To be honest with you, I just didn't want to be treated as a number within a company again. I think when I realized that to a business, you're always expendable. If they want to get rid of you, they can. And I'd never wanted that. So I thought, well, if I can go and work with this company, get a retainer, but then just say, look, I'll help you grow and I'll replace myself, because I wanted to be able to do this with lots of other different companies. So yeah, and that got me into the solar industry.
Can you explain what is a solar company to people who have no clue what it is?
Yeah, so it was basically installing solar panels onto, well, back then it was residential roofs. It was a bit of a golden era for it because there was a huge feed-in tariff that was paid for by the government as an incentive for people to have solar installed to try and switch to renewable energy.
Which made solar cheap or very not as expensive as it should be to install?
It was expensive to install back then. It's obviously dropped considerably now, but it was great from an investment perspective because when you have solar installed, you obviously get the free electricity whilst the sun is shining. But for every kilowatt of power that it produced, you got a feed-in tariff. So you got paid for every kilowatt hour that the solar panel produced, as well as an export tariff.
And what was the math look like for a normal household?
So basically it was a 2-year payback with a 25-year warranty on the solar modules.
So basically you install it and then in 2 years you get your money back.
And then you get the free electricity.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, but then it was the amount of money that was actually generating because of the feed-in tariffs. I mean, a simple 4 kilowatt house system, you know, you were making a couple of thousand a year just on the feed-in tariffs alone. So yeah, it was a great investment back then.
So your first company is TalkTalk that revolutionized internet.
Mm-hmm.
Then you do your own thing, didn't work out. Then you start working as a retainer for this solar industry and the solar.
Yeah,
these are nice trends, mate.
Well, it was at that point that I decided to set up my own company. I thought, well, this solar malark is simple. I'm going to do this myself. So yeah, that was when.
So that's business number 2.
This is business number 2. Yeah.
Obviously, solar is still that's still a new business for you, right?
Yeah.
It's still a new industry. It's still new things to discover. What was the main challenge to set up and start going? Was there something specific?
Yeah. So initially it was finding installers because I'm not an electrician. I didn't know anything about that. So yeah, initially we started off by I started off by trying to find companies that if I was to bring them business, would they be able to do the installations for me?
How quickly did you find those?
I call it the golden era of solar because even if you're just a normal electrician doing rewiring or anything like that, because of the money that could be made on solar, everybody jumped into trying to do solar. That also created quite a few problems. There were a lot of cowboys within the industry, people that didn't really do things properly. But if anything, that worked in our favor as well.
How long till you became successful in that business?
Relatively quickly. I'd say we were turning over a okay amount within probably about 8 or 9 months. Again, because of the feed-in tariff, there was a lot of interest from funders. And what we were able to do was develop a rent-a-roof scheme with Macquarie Bank being the funder. So ultimately what we do is we find properties whereby the household owner would like the free electricity, but the funder would keep the feed-in tariff because there were great yields to be made back then. And we then just created this sausage factory of money coming in to do the installation, the salespeople going and selling the free solar, and then the company getting the feed-in tariffs.
So win-win-win for everybody.
It was, yeah.
What did you do with this business? How big did it grow?
Yeah, so we developed another arm to it. So, the bread and butter was the solar side of things. We then scaled up by doing some commercial-sized properties and a couple of ground-mounted systems. And then, we built another, it was a separate entity, actually, which ultimately was a shared energy-saving model. So I used the same principle with the solar, but then did a commercial package that allowed us to go into any commercial property, monitor their electrical usage on different bits of equipment over a period of a couple of months. And then anything that we could simply retrofit would do that off balance sheet. So it was zero capex, but anything that it was going to be saving them over a 7-year period would split down the middle. So it was a shared energy saving model that we created. And that also went quite well.
How big is the team by then?
Probably around 25. We kept it really kept it really lean. We continued to outsource the installations, but we had a really good team of people that we could trust and work alongside with that.
How did you find your clients within that business, which now I'm guessing scaling, and you have two arms of it? How did you find the clients? Is it door to door as well?
Yeah, so initially it was door to door, telesales, pretty much anything, and then you reach a level where you end up building a brand and a name for yourself, and then people come to you.
So how long did you do this business for?
That was going for a total of 3 years.
And what happened with that business after 3 years?
The government cut the feed-in tariff. It was definitely challenging then because, you've obviously built your business on a certain model, and then, possibly the biggest aspect of that gets taken away. And then we tried looking at different things that we could get into, like cavity wall installation, just anything. But then all of a sudden you see the cash flow going in a bit of a downward spiral. And that wasn't the end of the business. But it was definitely a challenge. In fact, to be honest with you, I think I'd have been happier if the business would have been closed as a result of that, as opposed to what ended up happening next.
Yeah, sometimes it's better to cut your losses, but it's really hard when it's your baby.
Exactly. And it was the first one that, I was really, really passionate about. And like I said, it felt like my baby.
And so what happened with it? How did it end up?
I ended up getting introduced to what I initially thought was an investment organization. And, if you looked at them on paper, they had a global presence.
Nice website.
Lovely website. And when you start speaking to the founder of that company and, their team, they had some really what you'd consider credible people. Anyway, I met him the first time, and then he contacted me and just said, look, I think your business is perfect for what we're looking for. And I was like, well, what is that? And he just said, we've got a huge solar project that's going to be happening in Oman. And would like to do a joint venture with you on it, 50-50, where your business is at now. Because I was honest with him, I showed him the financials and everything. It was depleting. And he said, we'll cash flow you over the next 6 months whilst we're preparing everything. And we'll put a plan in place to be able to tackle this $200 million project in Oman. So I'm like, this is amazing.
Yeah, this sounds like a dream.
Yeah, it was.
Cash flowing your business, even though your clearly OPEX is ramping up and sales are going down. Mm-hmm. You get to keep your team and you get to work on a massive, massive $200 million project.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds a little bit too good to be true.
It was.
As usual, when it's too good to be true, folks, it's too good to be true. Do not fucking trust people who come and bring you like magic and fairies unless you fucking understand the business really in deep. There are some businesses, in my opinion, that are sometimes, you look at the numbers, oh my God. But the numbers that you told me today about, 2.5 years to get your money back and start making above the return of the capital, actual, your profit, bonkers. Yeah. I mean, that's bonkers. Mm-hmm. But it is a real business model and it does really exist. But you understood that business. You had all those things together. You were the one putting it together. Yeah. It wasn't somebody who told me, hey, here's Christmas. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Santa kid didn't come on a sleigh and go, hey, there we go, 200 mil, go for it. Yeah. So, okay, I can imagine where this is going. Yeah. But what happened then? So he's giving you cash. So where's the scam?
Yeah, so it didn't deliver any cash. So we came out to Dubai first. We had a few meetings here. They showed us all the power purchase agreements that they had that were all on government letterhead and stuff like that. So, at that point, I'm thinking this was real. That's why I thought it was legitimate. And then, like I mentioned, some of the people that I met within that organization, they seemed really credible. And looking back, I kind of wish that I'd have listened to a couple of other people around me as opposed to just jumping in at the deep end. But, I think the dollar signs were shining, and, on paper, what they were actually wanting to achieve wasn't difficult. Stupidly then, I signed over as part of the contract, signed over half of that business to be able to use that as the operating business to be able to do the delivery, because we already had all the certificates and, you know, the track record and everything within solar. And did that. And, you know, a few months had passed and they haven't delivered any money or done anything that they said. We were trying to push them and, you know, just nothing came. And then it got to a stage where I was having to use my own capital to pay the staff. And, you know, I didn't want to let them go because I didn't want to let them down. And I just ended up having to close that business.
How much OPEX were you burning on a monthly basis?
About £250,000.
Per month of your own capital?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
And that was when I lost everything again.
Jesus. In retrospect, what would you have done differently to find out more? What would have been the right decision?
So I think the big turning point for me was when I actually saw the power purchase agreement and what the actually scope of work looked like. Because I thought, well, this has got to be real now. You know, if anything, what I could have done differently was maybe contacted the companies that were listed on there, but I didn't. Well, when I said the companies, it was government backed. I don't really know what I could have done differently. I know that if I was in that situation now, well, I probably wouldn't, because I'm doing something completely different. But it'd probably been my fiance that just says, stop being an idiot, keep away from that. Yeah,
so it's looking at people and trying to discern the bullshit, which is half of being a business owner, really. Yeah, finding people that are not bullshitting you.
Yeah, I do find that challenging, because my natural reaction, and it always has, even to today, you know, I like to trust people up until that trust is broken. My fiance is the complete opposite. She doesn't trust anybody until the trust is gained.
Bro, smart cookie. Your fiance sounds like a smart cookie.
Yeah.
From what you've told me, she's a smart cookie.
Yeah, she is.
And okay, so the business, you burn for the money, for your own capital that you've made over the last 3-4 years. You did quite well, and now back to starting line.
Start again. Yeah.
Jesus.
Now, the one thing that I did have was still the shared energy saving business, but we didn't do anything with that. We literally just used that to be able to collect payments from where we'd actually shared the savings with the businesses. And I got invited over to Nigeria to speak at a conference over there on sustainability. Having a conversation with a gentleman, I was telling him about the shared energy saving model, and he just said, oh, we could really use that over here. And that evening, I remember going to a bank, and I was using the cash machine, and there was a complete blackout, but the cash machine was still working. I'm thinking, this doesn't really make much sense. So yeah, when I had a conversation with some people, the banks over there are powered by huge rooms filled with lead acid batteries. And, you know, I thought there's definitely something that we can do here. So initially that was the first thing that we looked at doing. And then simultaneously, as part of that trip, I ended up going into one of the remote villages, and I saw a child having to use a kerosene lamp to be able to read. And I thought, nobody should have to go through that. So at that point, I was like, right, this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to bring power to Africa. I'm going to, you know, do anything that I can to try and help it. And I got really passionate about it. And yeah, that was the next challenge.
It's a big mission.
Yeah.
That's not a small mission. That's a massive mission. And there's been some other people in this world that have tried to save people, like save Africa from whatever their mission is, like Bill Gates, who, like, I don't know, like the vaccines and stuff like that. How do you go from, you know, like burning through a business? I'm guessing did you have some money left at that point, or?
No, not really.
So you have no more money left and you're like, I'm going to save Africa.
A little bit, yeah. With Africa, it wasn't necessarily for me about, this was the first point in my life where I wasn't just doing it just for money. This was because I wanted to really give something back. And, you know, I felt as though nobody should be having to live through what a lot of the people were actually living through. That being said, you have to start somewhere. So we managed to install solar on a few universities throughout Africa. We did some ground-mounted systems.
And is the government or universities that were paying you?
Yeah, there was some direct, and then there were a couple of government contracts. But the government contracts over there, we never got one of the big ones done. A couple of things, really. The first one is their lack of understanding of what it requires to actually get some of these projects done. So, I remember one of the projects that I went to look at was in Burkina Faso, and it was 200 megawatt solar project. Back then, it was probably around $250 million project. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And mate, there were loads of these. So anything from 10 to the majority of them were bullshit, or they just had a lack of understanding as what were required. Because, when they said, right, we want to get this done, we need somebody to fund it, etc., etc. But what they didn't realize was that it wasn't just a matter of putting solar in a field and feeding it into the grid. If they did that, the grid would blow up. It needs a whole infrastructure change within a very short period of time. Anything that was above 50 megawatts, I just binned immediately.
Oh, so it was like, it's too good to be true. Did you learn it because of the $200 million thing, and now you were like, no, it's not going to happen,
Yeah, but I really did want to try and just get as many projects done as possible. And the ratio of ones that got done versus the one that didn't, probably 1 in 20, it was ridiculous. I ended up having to draw the line on the back of the final one. I was just like, you know what, this is too much. I can't do this anymore.
How long did the African journey?
So that was about 2.5 years. It was actually South Africa. It wasn't Sub-Saharan Africa where I decided to draw the line. I mean, ultimately, up until that point anyway, I wasn't making a load of money, which is never the best business model anyway. I managed to come across, it was actually an organization that I'd looked at doing a bit of work with. It was also a solar company based in South Africa. And they sent me over, it was a really simple retrofit streetlight project. Now, they put that out to tender. The gentleman that had won it, a chap called Lowy, he had a company called M3 that had been open 3 months. It had no track record, no financials, anything. He ended up winning the tender. I think it was called the Triple BEE. Basically, there were a certain number of points awarded for the colour of skin. And he ended up winning it on that merit. So I went and met him and I just said, look, I can put this together, but you need to just leave it to me. So we created an SPV where the contract went in through his company. And then I found an organisation that had done some projects within the UK, from the UK. And we managed to procure the actual fixtures and fittings from Philips. And anyway, it took me about 8 months to put everything together where everyone was happy. It wasn't a huge project. It was $50 million. And the gentleman, Lowy, he wasn't having to do a thing, and he was going to walk away with $1 million. It didn't have to do anything. And 2 weeks before the actual installation start, we were looking through everything, just double checking everything. And he said, oh, this company here, they're making 15% on the lights. I want some of that. I'm like, Lowy, that's their margin. You're not getting any of that. And he's like, no, I want some of that margin. I'm like, Lowy, it's not going to happen. Anyway, the project didn't go ahead because of that reason. And I just thought, you know what, enough's enough. I can't do this anymore. I think the hardest thing is, you're naive if you go into these types of countries and think that corruption doesn't exist. I knew it existed, and I felt as though I was prepared for it. I felt as though I could manage it. What really hurts more than anything else is when you get to a stage where you feel as though you want to help the countries more than what they want to be helped themselves.
I had a friend of mine. He was like, yeah, listen, I was negotiating a contract for, I think it was in Zimbabwe. The guy says, I came to the prime minister and I was negotiating on, how this contract was going to happen, and the funding for this contract was coming from the UN, and this was the grain that we're going to buy, and blah, blah, and then we're going to deliver it here. And it was for his country. Like, it was free grain for his country. He's like, how much is Mr. whatever going to make on this? And he talking about himself in the third person. And he was like, it's $25 million of free grain. What do you mean how much money you're going to make on it? Nothing. It's free grain.
Yeah.
It's like, no, if you want the free grain to land here, 15% sounds like a good number. It's like, we're giving you free stuff. You're paying for none of this. It's for your country. You want 50% of the free stuff for it to land here. How does that work?
Yeah, exactly.
And that sort of struck me. And I was like, wherever I went, everybody's trying to just take for themselves and not really prop up the country. Now, of course, not everybody. It's just my experience. So you've done this now for 2 years and a half. You've tried. You're winning small contracts. You're doing them. Then the last one with this 15% margin. Did you make any money during that time, like for yourself?
It was minimal because, at the time I was living in Switzerland. That's where the company that I'd set up was based. That's where my girlfriend at the time was based. So, most weeks I was flying to a different country in Africa and then coming back for a weekend.
That's harsh.
Yeah, I know. It got to a stage towards the end where if somebody delivered me a project and they wanted me to go to the country, I said, you've got to pay for my expenses and flights and everything like that. That did sift out a lot of the good from the bad.
Yeah, that's easy. If you say you need to pay me, everybody 99% go nope.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because you know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
It's like in gold. Sure, you want me to pay for the gold to come here? No. You come with the gold at the refinery in the UAE, and I will pay for you full price. 99% of people are like, no, you understand. I have shipping costs. I say, you have 20 kilos of gold.
Yeah, exactly.
You go outside, you sell 1 kilo, your shipping cost is covered for the whole year. What are you talking about?
You've got to pay the tax on the gold. And
You can just sell it. Yeah, you can just sell that gold there in the market because I've done it in the street.
Yeah.
They have a market. You go, you sell, and it's LBMA, maybe 3%, -3%, 2%, whatever. Because people have phones, they know how to know what the price of gold is, and there's refineries there. It's not the jungle. Like people think like Africa and African countries of the jungle. Mate, super sophisticated.
Yeah.
Super in the bush. People have iPhones. They have internet. They calculate LBMA. They look at the price. Like this is not like rustic or rural. Not everywhere. But anyway, cool. So now, 2.5 years later, Switzerland. You're living in Switzerland at that point in time. What's next?
Again, as part of the network that I'd built out, I got invited over to Sri Lanka, and they had a tender out for a solar farm that didn't get awarded because they valued the land too much in terms of agriculture. And this was sort of my first step into technology and trying to create a solution, because I always saw myself more of a solution provider as opposed to just solar. So what we did was we created a bifacial semi-transparent solar module. It's made up of cells inside.
Got it.
So this one in particular it had the cells, but it was glass. So it was glass on glass. So it still let light through.
Okay.
So you could use the land underneath to be able to grow, but you could generate power on the roof. And then we extended the mounting frame. Ultimately, we bridged the gap between your normal conventional solar farm and a glass house.
How do you build a team to develop a technology that doesn't exist?
Yeah, I know. It's a bit of a funny one, really. I've always been fortunate.
You have so many funny ones.
Yeah, I know.
No, tell me how.
Yeah, no. So it was actually a gentleman that I'd previously met at a solar show. And then throughout my career, I've got certain people that I go to for different things. And if it's one particular type of technology, I'll say, right, I've got this idea, can we build this? Or I've got that idea, can that be built? And this one was a yes. And then, we built it together.
Did you raise any money for that?
$500,000. It went well. In hindsight, I kind of wish we'd have just stuck to that and gone to market with that. We didn't. We ended up getting some grant funding to work alongside Plymouth University. The funding was from Cambridge Hock to build an off-grid plant factory. I then got asked to go over to South Africa to speak at another conference in Cape Town about our project. And I mentioned it over there, and there was an organisation that came up to me and just said, look, this is fantastic. We've got 10 million in funding. We've got some land in Stellenbosch. We can do knowledge transfer between the universities. And I thought, brilliant, we're away. And I came back to the UK. We started exchanging quite a lot of information. I was going to go over there in the March, and something called COVID came.
And that COVID came for everybody.
Yeah.
How did you turn this around?
Well, that one we didn't. We just had to park that to one side, and I got, pulled into supplying PPE.
Oh, so that's the unsuccessful one, successful one. Explain to me, Master.
Well,
how do you?
It depends what you define as successful. So there was a gentleman that put me in touch with an organisation, and it was one of the large care homes within the UK. And I had a conversation with him, and he just said, look, I'm really looking for PPE? Do you know anybody within your network that can supply it? And because I'd done quite a lot of procurement from China through renewable energy, I contacted some people over there and they said, yeah, no problem. What is it that you need? And the first order that we did, it was for 1 million Type 2R face masks. This was the care home. But a conversation that I had with him, I just said, okay, this is what you need. What's your budget for them? He says, well, we can go up to 55 pence per mask. I didn't really know whether that was good or bad at the time. When I was speaking to the guys over in China, I was able to procure them for 13 cents per mask. So I contacted the gentleman at the care home and I just said, look, I'm not going to charge you 55. I'll charge you 30 pence per mask. I'm making great margin. Just make sure you tell all the people within the industry when I've delivered it to you that you know we can deliver. So anyway, that was the first one. 2 weeks later, like clockwork, we didn't have any issues with shipping or delivery or anything like that. And by that time, the previous company that I had, which was the shared energy saving company, because at that point that had been going now 9 years, it had excellent credit rating, it had consistent cash flow going into it. We decided to pivot that into a PPE business. We won a couple of big NHS contracts, both in England and Wales.
How big?
The biggest one that we had was £2.5 million. We supplied all these contracts. We ended up getting one of the government contracts. So when they were, I think it was Turkey where some of the PPE was stuck for weeks. Somebody put me in touch with the cabinet.
Oh, I remember the story.
Yeah, somebody put me in touch with the cabinet and I just said, look, I tell you what, I'll deliver some masks for you. It won't be the total order value. I'll deliver them for you. Pay me when you've received them. And yeah, we did that. Got another order from them. And yeah, that was going really, really, really well for a period of time.
And at that point in time, like money-wise for you, are you raking in like £500,000 or something per contract?
Yeah, I think within the 6 months that was running, we got up to around 4.5 million in profit, which was nice.
What happened on this one?
Yeah, so not so funny a story. So we got contacted from a company, and I'd actually come across the business previously, again from the energy background, and they said, you're obviously doing really well within this. We've got a contract from the NHS in Scotland. All that did actually stack up. You've got more chance of winning the bid because, you know, you've obviously got the track record, etc. Can we put this through you? I said, yeah, of course, by all means. So anyway, got everything submitted. We won the contract. They said, okay, we'll send you the money for it. It's like, no, we're okay. They said, no, we want to pay for it for you. We don't want it to impact your cash flow. They sent us the money. We forwarded that across for the PP, and it was proceeds of crime. All of the accounts just got frozen from that bank, both business and personal. I managed to lose 4.5 million in a day.
Jesus, you lost £4.5 million in one day. How do you get up from that?
To be honest with you, that one really didn't hurt as much as the first one, for example, where it was a person that let me down. I think because it came really quickly and easy. Don't get me wrong, it was not the best knowing that you'd lost that much money, but I think because it came really quickly and it went really quickly, it didn't upset me as much as what you might think.
From all of these mistakes and failures and errors and experience and to be honest, when I hear about your story, it's not so much mistakes, just this is business. You never know. And you could have the best documentation in the world, the best presentation, the best website in front of you, the smartest guy in front of you, and you're like, well, yeah, I mean, what's there not to believe? There's a government letterhead. I've seen the projects. How do you protect yourself from these sort of situations? Like, what have you learned over these years?
I think I wouldn't say I protect myself. I'd just say, and I'd love to say that I learn from every mistake, but, you know, there's just certain things that are out of your control that there's nothing that you can do anything about. I think the thing that I have learned is to be a lot more resilient. I remember the first time where I lost everything and, you know, that always hurts the most. this most recent time when it's happened. You know, it's just something that's happened. I'm not going to let it impact me. I'm not going to let it affect me. We've just set up another business with a couple of other gentlemen who are absolutely fantastic. We're bringing that technology here to the UAE, and that's something that I'm really, really passionate about. And I just think, you know, if you're able to sort of get past the fact that you realize that shit's going to happen to you, okay? If you're an entrepreneur, there are going to be scenarios where things go wrong. There are going to be challenges, you know, there are going to be setbacks. There's going to be things that come up that you can't factor into a business plan, you know, but you've got to be able to try and overcome these challenges. You've got to be able to look for different avenues or different ways how you can maybe pivot the business or restructure or look into something else. You know, one of the things that I know people usually say, if there's something you can't do, saying no. I feel as though I've sort of been a little bit the opposite. I tend to say yes and then try and find a way how to do it. And that seems to have worked for me quite a lot in the past. But, you know, I think if you understand that and understand that there are going to be challenges and that there are going to be failures, and, you know, it's only a matter of time until you're up again. If your ethics are good, if you're doing the right thing and you genuinely believe in what you're doing and it adds value, then you're on to a winner. But, you know, one thing that I've always, with the businesses sort of now and moving forward, as opposed to just trying to push something in, what I've realized is if you can get pulled into something, it's a lot better route to market, because you've got a problem and you've got the solution, as opposed to saying, right, I've got a solution, let's try and find a problem.
You're in the UAE in Dubai now. You still have some money set aside, I guess. What's next?
Yeah, I was then very fortunate. Actually, a relative of mine, a gentleman called Jeremy, moved to Dubai at the same time. And a bit of a funny one, but I'd never come across him ever until my great-grandma passed away when she was 100. And I met him for the first time at her funeral. He was living in Singapore. I was living in Zurich. And at the same time, he just moved over to Dubai as well with his family. And yeah, I put a picture on Facebook, and my auntie, she contacted me and she said, oh, Jeremy's now moved to Dubai with the family. You should get in touch with him. And I met this guy and I was just like, wow, you're amazing. So he's got a company called the Unity Group based out of Singapore. And he's also got a network, which I think is the largest network in the world for M&A specialists. I think there's around 3,000 people within the Harbour Club now. And he just had this wonderful sort of sausage factory of business where he's teaching people how to do M&A over here. He then had his company Unity Group, so he's got constant deal flow. And he now takes roughly one company public every single month. So the first thing that I did was I ended up having a conversation with one of my really good friends over here, a guy called Mark. And I just said, look, should we do the Harbour Club together and then look out and see if we can do some M&A deals? And yeah, that's what we did.
So you ended up going from solar and energy, which is your specialty, technology, to now going in M&A because you're just excited about the prospect of doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a couple of other things that were happening sort of simultaneously as well. It's a little bit ironic that each time something's happened to me that's gone really well, there's been three factors that have really assisted, and it's just been in the right place at the right time and having the right people around you. So the other thing that I was looking at doing simultaneously to that was actually in the UK. Again, anything to do with business, energy, or energy related in the UK, I always get a lot of phone calls. And, you know, I was receiving some phone calls from people just saying, oh, have you heard about litigation claims that are available for businesses in the UK where they've been missold energy? So I'm like, no, I haven't. And they just said, look, can you introduce anybody to us? And I started looking into it, had a conversation with a couple of legal firms, and I saw that they were paying £1,250 for a package claim. And I thought, well, shit, I know lots of companies in the UK. I could build a quick team of people to just package some of these claims together. I had a conversation with my first ever mentor, Ryan. wonderful chap. And I just said, look, should we do this together? And then we got another gentleman on board who came from a business energy switching background. And we went away in trying to package claims together. And, we got off to a fantastic start. We ended up packaging quite a few claims. What we didn't factor in was the actual funding sources changing what they wanted as part of the criteria for these claims. So, fast forward a few months and we're already delving deep into the red. And with that business, we just decided to, again, pivot. We just came to the decision that, look, ultimately, there's all these companies that have been missold to on business energy. We've got all this data of companies that have been missold to energy. Why don't we pivot the business into doing an ethical business energy switching? So that's what we did. We got a platform and a couple of energy companies on board. And then we started contacting these organizations with the simple pitch of, look, you've obviously gone through the process to be able to claim some money back. What we want to do is do an education piece so that, it doesn't happen again in future. We want to point out where to look in the contract, but also we'll offer you the best price possible. We'll never add more than X amount into a contract. We'll do everything full transparent so that if you decide to go with us or you don't, at least then you know what to look for. And yeah, that got off to a bit of a slow start, but all of a sudden it's just gone crazy. So year on year, we've grown 350% within that business, which has seen great growth. And now we're just looking at expanding that. And that's literally just come down to doing things really honest and transparent and word of mouth. And then simultaneously with what was going on over here in the UAE, again, my business partner within We as Capital, Mark, we started looking at other companies that we could maybe acquire here in country. And we realized we had a bit of a knack for capital raising and obviously doing a bit of investments ourselves. And yeah, we just managed to grow that business. We've got a couple of acquisitions that we've done. And we've managed to raise tens of millions for some of the businesses that we work alongside as well.
That's fantastic. And on the M&A side, are you looking at any public IPOs in the next few years of the businesses that you've acquired? Or?
No, so we tend to stick to the SME space. So initially, it's a company that have done quite well. They've reached a bit of a plateau within their industry. And then we go in there and we just say, look, we'll do X, Y, and Z to turn it around. For that, we'll take X amount of your business. If we don't deliver over a period, then you get the shares back.
Interesting. So it's a turnaround sort of situation where you come into not a distressed situation, because obviously you want them to be stable enough for them to be able to actually grow.
Yeah.
And what's the revenue target you look at? What kind of numbers?
Yeah, it can be anything really. A million plus would be okay.
What's next for you? Like over the next 5 years, do you see yourself using Dubai as your base, or Switzerland, the UK, or what is next for you?
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm going to be here in Dubai for the inevitable future, or the foreseeable future. I want to start a family here. In terms of business with ESAF, I really want to create a circular economy with the technology that we're bringing in, which ultimately is taking waste plastic and converting it into aviation fuel. So we've managed to get the patent on that final stage of the refinery from into the aviation fuel. And I want to be able to create a model whereby we're procuring the plastic in country, we're recycling it in country, we're refining it in country, and we're using it in country. So like I mentioned, we're currently having the technology delivered here. We're hoping to be up and running within Q1 of next year. At that point, even though we've already been having preliminary conversations with some key stakeholders, we want to collaborate, not compete. We really want to bring the technology here, launch it as UAE innovation, and that's really what I want to do.
That sounds incredible, man. Good luck on the journey. Your journey, I hope, will inspire others to not look at, some businesses and loss of money as mistakes, but as experience, get back up and continue building, because you're that example of a resilient entrepreneur that something goes wrong, he keeps coming back up and going for it. Congrats, mate. It's a hell of a journey. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much.
It was lovely to have you. Thank you, mate.
Yeah,
I
good to be
appreciate that.